That was a Christian report.
Right. Shout out to
What is up, everybody, and welcome into the DNVR Nuggets Podcast.
Let's go. Special guest in the house.
There it is. There's all the air horn. We're presented as always by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Use promo code DNVR whenever you sign up. I've got a nice squad with me today. A nice squad, looking like he just got done with his tennis workout. It's Harrison Wynn.
I'm glad we got Dane here from the Timberwolves to talk about the Juancho Hernan Gomez resurgence in Utah.
In Utah, yeah. It's like our mutual ex-player.
Right, that's the topic of today's show.
We got Malik Beasley, too.
Yeah, that's
we got
true.
Jared Vanderbilt.
We got too many.
But Juancho's taking over.
Well, you introduced our guest too early. I got to go over here in his New Jersey uniform. It is Brendan Vogt.
That's right. The all black leather. I'm like an off-duty actor, except I'm not hot or famous. That's all I
You're
got.
a character actor.
Joke.
Yeah, that's it.
Is that a joke?
It's not really a joke.
Out. Dated. And then, of course, friend of the show. In fact, I would maybe say best friend of the show. Dane Moore. Dane, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I was hoping it'd be a little bit closer in the standings for this game tomorrow, but it's way nicer in Denver than it is in
It is
Minneapolis.
beautiful here.
It is nicer in Denver. It's funny you say that. We're going to get to some of that talk a little bit later on in terms of like how close is this? Because you're right that I kind of anticipated this would be the one game that matters, and it looks like it's not the one game that'll matter. There'll be some other ones, but we do have some news. Anthony Davis, LeBron James coming back. Both of them coming back.
Sick.
But not
Non-Nuggets related injury news.
maybe not tomorrow, guys, but they will be back for Sunday, so they get the 2 games against Denver, which I don't know. Who knows? Maybe that's meaningful. Maybe it's not.
Well, and then the play-in. If it's probably going to be the Wolves,
right.
but that play-in
I
7
know,
spot
I
is
know.
not looking good.
It
right
sucks. It actually really sucks. And we'll get to all of that. But we're going to, of course, preview. I mean, this is the biggest game of the year for both teams. The game on Friday night, it's a divisional game. It's obviously a marquee matchup between
Northwest Division.
Northwest Division. It's also a marquee matchup between two, the best centers in the NBA, and it just carries an enormous amount of stakes. Let's start with this, Dane. Catch us up to speed on what's going on with the Timberwolves. And you were on the show like 2 months ago. Catch us up to speed really on the last 2 months, like this final chapter of the season. What's going on with the Wolves?
Yeah, well, let's. I think I was here right around Christmas, and actually right after that is in Denver is kind of when the Wolves started getting hit with COVID really hard, and all their starting lineup was out, and so there's this whole kind of like 10-day run where the Wolves were just like a shell of themselves, as a lot of teams were. But it's interesting that as soon as that ended, it was like January 3rd when the guys got back. Like the Wolves have the number 2 offense in the league since that time. I mean, that's 3 months now. Whereas before that line in the sand, they were 23rd in offense. So what you have now is a far more potent offensive Wolves team. The defense is not what it was at the beginning.
It's gone like this, right? Like
it's kind of what you called when you came on my show, where I mean, it's the same thing. It's that really aggressive scheme where you got Cat all the way up there like Jokic does, and then you're just scrambling behind him, and the Wolves kind of ran out of fuel to be able to do that. Jared Vanderbilt was a huge part of it. He got dinged up. Just it wears on you. So what I would say is offensively, you have a Wolves team that's a lot better than they were before, and
That's actually really scary considering what happened last time.
Oh, they made like well, because you remember this year they played a couple times obviously, but Anthony Edwards had 10 threes in one game.
Yeah.
Like,
10.
Oh, I remember.
yeah, it's like 10 threes is actually pretty absurd, and so for them to get better, why is it better? What is it that's happened that's made them better?
Well, it was such a problem at the beginning of the season when they shifted Jared Vanderbilt into the starting lineup. He really deserved it because, like we said, he was a big part of the defense. He's just an insane rebounder, particularly offensive rebounder. So they don't have very many power forward options. So they put Vando in to be the starting 4, and it really clogged things up. Honestly, almost every team other than Denver doesn't guard Cat with a 5.
Mm-hmm. I remember you talking about that last time.
That was brand new kind of at the time, but it's been the thing now the whole time. Like, I mean, the Wolves played the Celtics on Sunday, and it was like Grant Williams on them, Tatum on them, and then they just have Robert Williams lurking at the rim to do that. So it took them a while to figure out, all right, nobody's guarding Vando. How do we make this work? Right. Your classic sort of non-shooter situation. And
How do they make that work? Asking for Denver.
it doesn't really work.
Asking for Michael Malone.
It's odd that they have such a good offense when, man, there's just like 10 plays a game where it's just awkward. I mean, you know what that looks like.
Right.
We've seen it on a lot of different teams. But a big part of why it has worked is that Cat stopped posting up because then they would just double him there.
Right.
Vando's guy would come over, double him. And now Cat is playing. If there's a star player to compare him to the way he plays now, like stylistically, it's Giannis. I mean, he's
Interesting.
He's the most prolific big man driver
in
the league.
Yeah.
Cat is now outside of Giannis. So it's really taken a whole different sort of form where you have Cat up there. He's not shooting many threes anymore, and he's just looking to drive every single time. Where it's harder to double him, right? If you put him up at the top of the key. So they figured some of that out. They're still figuring out other things to answer your first part of your question. Recently, they've been struggling.
It's so funny to me, Vogt. How much do you think? I mean, the Chris Finch part of this is a big piece of this. Like, he comes from the Nuggets coaching tree. He was with Jokic.
Dude, he's a beast.
He's a great coach. He's a beast. I love it. What coach has ever been described as a beast?
None.
I might be the first I've ever heard.
Absolute unit.
I mean, you got to remember where I'm coming from.
killer,
The
man.
Timberwolves.
That's actually a big part of this. Is the Timberwolves probably had the worst coach in the NBA, or one of the worst coaches.
Yeah, and it's just been, honestly, they've really only had one good coach ever. That was Flip Saunders. I mean, Chris Finch is the only other coach in Timberwolves history now who has a winning percentage over 500.
That's wild.
I don't think
Chris
Sam Mitchell was in that category. Probably not.
Not quite. Didn't quite make it.
But it's funny that you brought up the drive part of this, because Yoke's also driving a lot more,
Yeah.
less so than Towns. But what I'm saying is bringing him into different roles is something that these two teams are doing in parallel. Vogt, how much do you think Michael Malone is watching the Timberwolves specifically because Towns is a versatile scoring big, and vice versa? How much do you think Finch is watching the Nuggets? And they're both kind of like comparing notes here.
Probably quite a lot. I mean, especially from the Finch side, right? Whose first introduction, I should say introduction, but like great success in in a creative offense was around Jokic. I would imagine they're both keyed in pretty close for that same reason.
And the defenses too. Like, he's talking about these doubles, the putting Grant Williams on him. Like, well, here's what's funny about the league right now. Everybody's so smart. I mean, I really mean this. Everybody's so smart that, like, one team has success with this, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, guess what so-and-so did? We're all going to do this now. So I just wonder if everybody's trying to solve the same problem, the same equation.
That's what I mean, yeah, defensively. You brought up the Robert Williams example with the Celtics, and we saw that ourselves with him just roaming, and it wasn't necessarily – there was some Horford at times, but
Grant Williams had that block on Yoke, and everyone was like, what an incredible block. But it's like, hey, it was part of their scheme. Like, they're – bring in the help, so now he has to lean back a little. But
it is really cool to see the league have to adjust to centers in this way.
Yeah.
Like, how do we guard a team whose best player is that at that size from that position? Who do we guard them with?
Isn't it so interesting how different it is from like Embiid to Jokic to Cat to Giannis? Like all four of those guys is like they're really good beasts. Apparently that's my word today, but like in different ways. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to compare them.
Sure.
I think Towns and Jokic are by far the closest of, like, if you put those four on some kind of like three-dimensional quadrant, like those two would find themselves in the closest space. They are meaningfully different in certain ways, but
I'd agree with that.
Giannis is way out on his own, and
his own thing.
Towns and Embiid is a little bit more of a traditional mold of it, just a better version than most.
I mean, to go back to that point we were saying about Malone and Finch, it's like there are so few bad coaches in the league now. Like, I can't remember another time when you can't like look at that many coaches and say like, okay, this guy is, in a tier by himself. Like, it just seems like coaching in the league is at such a high level, and the schemes that these guys are drawing up to defend the Jokic's, the Towns, the Embiids, I just feel like it's at a completely heightened level than it's been in years past.
What I love about Finch and Malone, they were a great duo in my opinion. This is my theory. They were a great duo because Malone is like super intense, super principled as a human being. I think he's just like, I got this, that. I think Finch is a lot more outside the box thinking and also a lot more relaxed. And I think any of those two extremes can swing too far. You kind of need it sometimes to be relaxed and like, hey, let it breathe. And you sometimes need to be intense. And I'm wondering, Denver's personality matches Malone's often, although they also like inversely match him sometimes in that they just drive him nuts. How do you think Finch's personality, because he's very laid back. I mean, he's extremely casual. How do you think that has affected the mind frame of the team?
it's interesting. One of the first things that Finch said to us when we were just kind of like, asking about what his philosophy is as a coach, and it was like, he said, you get out of the way. You know, these players are so talented. Your job is to get out of the way so as to not restrict their talent, right? And I think he applies the same sort of logic to the personality side of it. Like, he kind of lets Pat Bev patrol things in terms of like the locker room. And Taurean Prince, like they're the vets on the team, and it's not like Finch doesn't have control of the locker room. It's just not like hyper control of
it's maybe not his role to be that.
And I don't think he understands that. I don't think he wants to be like again. It's just not. He isn't wired like Malone with that every minute intensity.
Right.
Like he does, like sit back and turn off coaching mode. Sometimes you could tell where Malone. I'm not sure. It's like I think that dude's just
Malone's
24/7.
at a 10 with 2 minutes left in the game, and his reserves are in, and they're up 20. Like he never turns it off.
You know the funny Malone is, maybe this is across the league. Michael Malone reaches the podium for his press conferences before games at the exact right time.
You can tell a lot lot about a coach by how on time they are to their pregame pressers.
5:15
I've been to, 700 of these pregame, whatever. I don't know. Maybe it's not that many. I've been to so many of them, and they are all so punctual. Like you can have your clock and it'll be like, clock ticks. Here's Malone.
Like last night, Rick Carlisle, you can probably guess, was like 10 minutes late.
Really?
Yeah. But Malone, on time every single time.
How's Finch? This is like a nice little personality
Coach's
thing.
corner.
There's only been one time where Finch was late, and we thought it was because he tested positive.
Because that's the first thing you always think,
right? Yeah. Like it's 5:20. Like I'm supposed to be here at 5:15.
Like, oh, shit.
Maybe not full Malone in punctuality, but he's up there.
How is he as a personality from a media perspective?
He's really great to work with. Super plain spoken. It was honestly like media interactions with Ryan Saunders were like when the mics and camera were on were really it was awkward kind of because Ryan had so much of Rosa's in his ear, saying say this, don't say that, and whatever. And as a media member, I mean, Harrison, you can attest, like when you're asking coaches questions every day, like you want it to be a dialogue, right? And honest, as much as you understand they can't tell you everything, but like Finch is pretty close. Like he'll call players out, and he'll be real about what happened in the situation. And I think as a player, that's probably helpful, and as a media member for sure.
So I'm looking at the schedule here. This 7-game stretch when you include Denver, but you're 6 games into the toughest 7-game stretch probably of the entire season for the Timberwolves.
Yeah,
they're 2-4 in that. They beat Milwaukee, which was a very good win. That was a good one.
Giannis.
Okay, fine, not that good. That's right, they didn't have Giannis. I was very mad about that one. They beat Dallas, which was a very good win. They lost to Dallas, they lost to Phoenix, they lost to Boston, and they lost to Toronto. You look at that. I look at that personally as an outsider, and I go 2-4. If I were them, I would have hoped for 3-3, but not necessarily expected 3-3. It'd have been like, man, if you do that, whatever.
I agree with that. It's kind of feeling like a bad 2-4 now. Because the last 2 they just got smacked. Like Boston was up by 20 on them. Yeah, Boston
does that though, don't they? Yeah.
and then honestly, last night's game was just kind of demoralizing. The Wolves were up by 17 and they ended up losing by 23.
They were up by 17. I didn't catch that part. I knew they were up, but I thought it was like 10.
Up 17 in the second and ended up losing by
Toronto does that too, though. I'm telling you, like you look at
teams.
Toronto's one of the toughest teams to game plan.
Right now, they're a tough. Any given night, Toronto can beat you.
I'm telling you, no, it's not even that. It's go and look at their record against 76ers, against the Nuggets, against like any team that relies on their big. They just they have something figured out there. That's my theory, at least.
Nurse,
and obviously a brilliant coach. So, all right. So, do they not have momentum in your opinion coming into this one, or is that like, hey, they just played some tough games?
See, I think this game, everyone was kind of saying after the Wolves lost last night, like, oh, this game in Denver now is like. Has lost the wind in its sails, right? Like, I don't think that's true. Yeah. Like, I think Denver's coming into that game tomorrow saying, we win this, we've locked up.
Yep.
That part's true. If Denver wins, I do think it's over.
Yeah. So that I would presume for them is going to be a big driving factor. And then for the Wolves, like this is they're still convinced they're in it. They're not resting players.
For the Wolves, this is their chance to be like, okay, we're still in this. Like we're good. We went 2-4 in our last 6, but we're still that team.
And they just got to get back right for the play. Like if you get the 7, you get the 7. Like I think the Wolves have done pretty much everything they could to threaten Denver or Dallas for one of these spots. Denver and Dallas just kept winning. The Wolves have been the 7 seed every day since January 31st. Except for that one 20-hour window where they passed the Nuggets for like a minute.
That's right.
But other than that, they've been the 7 seed since January 31st, and they're 16-7 in that time. They don't move up at all. That's nuts.
There's nothing more disheartening. I mean, it was the same for Denver, who was in the 6 and was like, all right, great chance to build some separation. There just never was any. And you're like, wow, 8-game winning streak, no separation.
It's just the same standing. And then all of a sudden, now the standings are not the same. Dallas is as we record this on Thursday afternoon, Dallas is the 3.
Golden State is the 4.
Golden State's the 4. Denver's technically the 5.
Yeah.
And Utah's now the 6, who's lost 5 straight. I
don't think Utah's going to lose out because they have some real easy. They actually have some actual tanking teams down the stretch, so they're probably not a great chance for the Timberwolves to pass them.
I think Denver is the Wolves' best chance to get the 6 seed.
Yeah, you got to win this game, and then you got a chance.
and they have the tiebreaker
on
Denver, and they don't have it on Utah. So it's actually one more game.
Right.
So what's your kind of prediction for this game? I mean, these two teams know each other. They're both relatively healthy. What do you think it's going to look like? I
mean, honestly, if they keep guarding Cat with just Jokic, I think that's a bad idea.
Really?
I mean, because I'm telling you, man, I've watched 75 of these games this year.
I believe you.
It's when teams single cover Cat with a 5. It can be Embiid. It can be a great 5. It doesn't work. It's like single coverage on Cat has not worked this season. We saw that in the last time when they were here. I mean, Ant had those 10 threes, but Cat kind of gave it to Jokic too. He was moving him around, and one-on-one, he's just a tough cover. So if I were Denver, I'd put Jeff Green on Cat. That's what I would do, and have Jokic lurk. I'm just saying.
Hold on. Part of
what
what you're getting at here, though, JaMychal Green. I mean,
not JaMychal Green. Sorry, Jeff Green.
I know you said Jeff Green. You said Jeff Green.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is JaMychal Green has been out for a while, and he's actually sneaky important. I think we saw a little bit of this last game when you just needed rebound. Denver's getting killed on the rebound. They got passed. Yeah. So you look at this and you go, I don't know if he's supposed to be back or not tomorrow, but it actually would probably tilt the odds a little bit more in this favor for Denver if he is, and would tilt him a little more in Minnesota's favor if he's not, just because of how shorthanded they are.
And the Wolves are a great offensive rebounding team.
Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be a close game. I just feel like Minnesota's a tough matchup for Denver. Their guards especially. The Nuggets just can't really stop dribble penetration. Right. And with Russell and Edwards, those guys can get to the rim. Those guys are dangerous. Nuggets defense has just not been good. It's just been really bad over the last couple of months. It's been going in the wrong direction. And I think we know Minnesota's going to get up for this game.
Yeah, man.
And
they will.
I'm curious if the Nuggets will, to be honest.
I know, it's so sad to say, but here's what I would say. I think we go too far sometimes with that with the Nuggets. Jokic, the one thing is the Towns Jokic matchup. Jokic just never views these things in one-on-one ways, whether he should or shouldn't. Sometimes I think he should. Tomorrow, I kind of think he should. I really do. I think he should go out there and try to set a tone and send a message early that to his teammates of hey, I'm better than this guy.
Absolutely.
So don't you guys worry about this and give everyone else confidence. But I kind of feel like he won't. He'll just come out and maybe it's possible that he can get out of the first quarter with 2 field goal attempts, and he'd be like, what are we doing here? But this is just how it goes.
I think it's like I was saying to you before, I feel like I've watched a ton of Denver recently, and the thing I would be concerned about as a Wolves fan would be the game being close, and then in the fourth quarter, I've just watched the Nuggets will their way. Jokic basically willed the Nuggets to win those games in those execution times of the season. And the Wolves, I wouldn't say they're bad at that, but when they've played higher caliber teams, which I would put Denver in there, they kind of get beat up in the last 6-8 minutes of games of just being out executed. So I don't know. I think the Wolves, and this has been a trend all year, if they get up big early, that's the thing. First quarter, you come out, you have a 14-point lead, look out. If not, it's going to be back and forth, and then who executes on the stretch. If it's close in the fourth, I'm picking the Nuggets.
This is a Friday game, obviously with a lot on the line. I think it's going to be a playoff atmosphere at Ball Arena. How is have
Ant will get going, man.
That gets him going. He
Totally.
So
more than any player I've ever seen. And the opposite of it too. Tuesday night against the Hornets,
dead.
bet the under.
That's like the best thing and the worst thing for a player.
And he's 20. I mean, he's 20, but that's
you almost expect it sometimes with guys.
But he had 10 threes last time he was here. Like, he's just that guy, who's going to remember those things. He knows this is a really big game for them. He started to, I didn't even mention it in the kind of like what's gone on the past few months. He has not been the same player at all. He's dealing with jumper's knee. And so it's like you kind of spin the wheel of what Anthony Edwards you're going to get every night now physically. It's been better recently, but again, randomly, he'll just drop off. So,
is it accurate? From our perspective, the Wolves certainly seem to play with a particular ferocity against Denver this season. And now, is that just how they've taken?
They're one of the rare teams that is like punching up at Denver.
They're like, let's go, give me the Denver Nuggets. And
like,
there's a
lot
lot in
to
that.
surpass them, whereas Denver.
But is that? And I only watched so much of this Wolves season. Have they brought that all year? Is that an accurate assessment for this matchup?
Comes down to Cat, man. Cat wants to beat Jokic.
Yeah.
He wants to beat Embiid. Like he's Gobert, bam. Like he gets up for those sort of games, and so I think that kind of Cat's the best player. Like that kind of drives it. If he is, I would be pretty shocked if Cat has like a bad game tomorrow, and
Me too.
And then they all kind of just like flank in around that. But I don't know. It's I they were like that at the beginning of the year, but again, it goes to that defense thing where they've just sometimes like they don't have the juice.
It's almost like I felt like they were playing like a playoff team for the first third of the season, and that's hard to carry for 82.
For sure,
it's
it
really
is.
hard.
Why don't we hit a break? I want to continue this conversation, and including on the other side, I want to ask, who is the guy? Who is the guy we're looking at as the X factor or key guy in the matchup tomorrow? And we'll kind of all go through our list of that. But first, Harrison.
Ivaca TV. If you haven't been able to watch Nuggets and Avs games this season, which a lot of you haven't, check out Ivaca TV.
Sick.
It's a totally new paradigm for TV delivery. Less expensive, more efficient, and a better picture quality than legacy providers. With Ivaca TV, you get altitude. You get a bunch of other national channels as well. It's only $25 a month. You get a free receiver as well. No contracts, no hidden fees. Price is locked in for 2 years. Most importantly, they have Altitude Sports. So what you need to do is go to ivaca.tv/DNVR. That's how you get that deal. ivaca.tv/DNVR to get set up with them. Let's see. At DraftKings Sportsbook this week, guys, we've got the tournament going on, of course. College basketball fans, join the action on the court during the biggest tournament of the year with the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Turn your team's victory into your own big one. New customers can bet just $5 on any team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. It's that simple. If they win, you win. Of course, you can get in on same-game parlays with college hoops as well to earn even more money. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use promo code DNVR. Bet $5 on any college hoops team to win. Get $200 in free bets if they do. If they win, you win with promo code DNVR this week at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem 1-800-522-4700.
Back here, segment 2. We're with the great Dane Moore, and we're previewing tomorrow's game. All right, Dane, you've had a little time to think of it. Who is the guy tomorrow? You say that's just the number one most important person, and it can be the star, or it can be a role player or an X factor.
Can I say Nuggets player?
If you want to, yeah. I like it. Yeah, actually, you can.
I think what is so important right now against the Wolves is the opposing team's point guard being able to effectively split their pick and roll coverage, or handle that coverage. Because again, and I mean, I'm sure your guys' listeners recognize this too. The Wolves defend the same way the Nuggets do, pick and roll, where Jokic is up, very aggressive. Yeah. And really with the Wolves, like that's how they're either generating a bunch of turnovers from that point guard, walling them up,
good.
or some, the higher level point guards are picking that apart. They're stretching that out. They're finding the guy in the short roll. They're finding the guy in the corner. That's when the Wolves are getting beat up. But it really requires the point guard to initiate that effectively, and it's not an easy coverage to navigate. And so is that Monte Morris? I don't know. It's not going to be all Jokic, right? Jokic is not going to initiate every single possession for them out there. And so I guess that's my way of saying I think defense is so important with this team. If you could tell it's going to be a good defensive game or a solid defensive game for them, I think they can play with anybody. And that has more often than not dictated the opposing lead ball handler, pick and roll guy. What are they going to do in a given game? And honestly, Denver doesn't have great options there.
Well, it's interesting because Bones would be the guy, and it's kind of funny to think about Bones maybe being the key here because he actually has been the key for the Nuggets in a lot of these games. It's just a lot to put on his shoulders.
Well, I mean, it's tough. The Wolves have so many long players like Russell, Edwards, Vando, obviously. Like, it makes it tough because, like, Monte and Bones, like, they've got some length. Bones is a nice wingspan, but they're still pretty small guys. It makes it tough.
For sure.
Nuggets have had 12 turnovers, 17 turnovers, and 18
They
turnovers.
turned the ball over
going in reverse order, actually. So the first game was 18, the second game 17, the last game 12.
Yeah.
Something to look at there. I mean, 16 or above, 15 or above is a lot. 15 or below is not a lot. So
Wolves had 22 last night.
Did they really?
Yeah.
But they look to generate them on defense, right? And I do actually expect them to have maybe more success than you're expecting because you're looking at how they've trended down in that direction. From our perspective, Denver's also trending down in protecting the ball.
Yeah, for sure. Vote. Who's your guy?
Anthony Edwards. Can I take him?
Sure.
That too.
We traded.
Yeah, I know.
It's like he has such a strong impression in our minds because of how freaking dominant he was in that one game.
Hell yeah, he does.
Might have been his best game as a pro. I mean, he's really good, but that game was ridiculous.
And do I expect to see that again? No, but is Aaron Gordon going to guard him? How does that matchup work out? Because I think Cat and Yoke, Cat plays Yoke well, and this is not Yoke's best matchup, but I do think more often than not, we could at least call it a wash or something. They'll both be very good.
Oh, it's no shade at Jokic at all. I mean, Jokic is better than Cat.
So then, but the next guy I fear.
Yeah, I want to be like I don't want to be like Homer guy. Like no, actually,
but in this matchup,
I have Cat for MVP this year
as well. Yeah, but Ant's the next guy that just scares me. I don't know if he's the next most important guy, but just X factor that could turn the game on its head. Whether that's momentum or
way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
He has 6 points. I mean that happens with him all the time too.
Yeah, I'm watching him for sure.
I think Aaron Gordon's going to be big just in terms of a guy you're looking to maybe guard in Anthony Edwards, but also rebounding.
Yeah.
Like the Timberwolves killed Denver on the offensive glass last time they played. Aaron Gordon has been really a bad rebounder turned into a pretty average one, I think. He's been kind of trending up, but still not like elite there. So, if Aaron Gordon gives them a really good defensive game, a good game on the glass, and he puts pressure on the rim on the other side of the ball, like I think that could lead to a Denver win.
That would be my answer is Aaron Gordon, just because he swings so many things. And as you mentioned, he did get cooked by Anthony Edwards once this year. And so
that matchup
would be like, hey, man. But on top of that is you kind of need a playoff performance from Aaron Gordon. You need him to both make sure Anthony Edwards is a non-factor or a limited factor. You also need him to rebound really well, and then you need him probably to score a little bit. Like I don't think they're going to have to run a ton. If he does those other two things, they don't maybe have to run a ton through him. But they also Denver needs just an X amount of guys to step up. Yeah. Like Jokic almost always steps up. You need to get a couple other guys that step up, and he's a great candidate for it. So to me, they probably need a top 10 game of the year from Aaron Gordon tomorrow.
Yeah,
I think that would be like one of the big keys.
It's almost like for the Nuggets to win right now, Jokic is going to give you an A-level game. You almost need like 2 out of the 4 of Will, Monte Morris, Aaron Gordon, and Bones Highland to have a good game.
So true.
Then you can get a win. If you only get 1 out of 4 of those guys going off, it's probably a loss.
And how have Gordon's best games come, especially of late? Like, just stay active, man. Cut off ball. Like, you don't have to wait for a wide open shot. You can pump fake that or just take it straight into an aggressive drive. Just be Aaron Gordon, a guy who physically very few players can match up with.
Yeah.
Which he has been lately, right?
Up and down.
The good looks like that. The bad is when he's maybe a little more tentative or waiting for the jumper.
He's a bit of an enigma, man, because I think he is. I mean, he's very well suited to be in that.
We're at enigma stage with Gordon already.
No, well,
I'm a Gordon fan. I think Gordon is like a really good fit next to those type of centers.
He's an incredible fit in
really
Denver.
is.
Like,
He's
I
an
wanted
A+
him.
fit.
I wanted him to be the 4.
You have to think of it this way: if you added Aaron Gordon to the current team, the Timberwolves team, you'd be like, unbelievable. Are you kidding? He gets to play around D'Angelo and Towns and Edwards. You'd be like, that's great. He's the 4th option. If you took away Edwards and D'Angelo,
That's what's happened,
then that's exactly what's happened with Denver. So you're like, some nights when we say he doesn't have it, he's probably just not should be expected to have it every night in that way.
And it's the toll of the season, right? The first third he was like A++.
I do.
Now it's a little bit more.
It's not lost on me that every time he talks about Jokic, that's what he mentions. He's like, this guy brings it every night. It's like,
that.
I didn't know you're supposed to do
I
that.
didn't even know you did. You guys don't realize.
Getting a lot of D'Angelo Russell parallels here.
Aaron Gordon, he's kind of like his own worst enemy because when he wants to be the super efficient, high
Aggressive.
field goal percentage guy, he can be. Just goes to the rim, buries his guy in the post, and just finishes at the basket. Like, he can do that every possession if he wants to. But over the last couple months, he's just settled a lot, taken a lot of threes.
Right.
Made some, but missed more. It's like when he wants to be that guy, he totally can.
So I think Aaron Gordon would be my answer on this. Another guy that you could say that's not my answer, like Will Barton. The Nuggets can't have a bad Will Barton game tomorrow. And sometimes they have a bad Will Barton game and it's really rough. They need him to be like a positive. You talked about splitting the defense. He's probably the second best on the team at doing that specific thing, Bones being the first. And Barton's going to play a lot. So they need him to be able to make plays without turning it over. That puts that pressure on him. But I think the guy's Jokic. I think the guy's Jokic. Like, this is a perfect – not that he cares about these things. I think he honestly just wants to win. But this is the perfect narrative builder. Can the Nuggets make the 6th seed with them losing this one? Yes. But it's a little weird if you don't – it's almost like it was given to you rather than you take it. Tomorrow is a chance for Jokic to take it for the Nuggets to say, nope, we are not going to the play-in. I'm shutting the door on this because I was the best player on the court by a meaningful margin, which he has, in my opinion, the ability to do. We just only see it in these little pockets. Like, they just seem to happen sometimes out of nowhere where he saves the game. Tomorrow is a game that I would love for him to come out, a reminder game, as you put him, Vogt, and just really a statement game that's like, I'm not trying to say anything bad about my teammate, this or that, but there were times this year where I just said, we're going to do this, and we did it. And tomorrow would be the best chance. Make some threes. He hasn't even been taking them, but I think
he's going to take any last night.
But I think he's going to have to take some, and he hasn't been making them lately. Tomorrow would be a great night for him to go 3 of 4 from 3.
What determines if he takes threes is just the quality of team he's going against.
That's so true.
Like, he's going against the Pacers.
So where do the Wolves fall on that?
I think the
he'll
Wolves
take
fall
'em,
in the category of he's going to take.
He's going to take
like
them.
3.
The Pacers,
He'll take like 4 or 5
the
tomorrow.
Thunder. He's like, I don't need to take threes against these guys.
Going right to the basket every
Yeah.
time, or
I'm going to pass up even a foul line jumper just to give it to somebody else at the rim.
I actually insist that one of you motherfuckers take care of this. I really.
The other auxiliary
Enough's
thing here for Denver, Dane, is that this Jamal Murray, Michael Porter thing has hung over the Nuggets' heads all year. We still don't know if those guys are coming back or not. We kind of thought they'd be back here before. I honestly believe that if the Nuggets win tomorrow, the odds of those guys odds of those guys returning go up ever so slightly. In large part because the last 4 games don't matter. Like, you don't have to worry about what if we bring Michael Porter back in a must-win game. Like, that's a nervous thing to do. If you get a 4-game cushion to just say, hey, you know what, why don't we try this out? I just think it makes it a little bit more likely and allows Denver a little bit more just rest and we'll get our team right rather than, hey, we have to play Jokic 43 minutes down the stretch every game just to get in. So I think it's big.
Feels like it would help them a lot if they could get a couple of games in.
They'll almost become preseason games.
You cannot go into game 1 of the playoffs and be like, okay, they're back.
Well, hold on. There's precedent for this in each of the last 2 years. Last year, Will Barton returned in game 2 of the second round.
That's a little different.
Well, because it was Barton?
No, because it was the second
injury.
round, and it was Barton.
And
Okay,
the injury was different too.
Well, the injury was different, but it doesn't matter. Like, Barton was he had been out for like 7 weeks, or 6 weeks. Like, he'd been out so long that it was a real coming out of nowhere. And then before that, you had Gary Harris, same thing, who had missed like 6 weeks.
I just think that's totally different.
Is it different than Michael Porter?
Yeah.
Why?
Gary just, in that Utah series, he played such a defined role. I
think Michael Porter would play a defined role if he came back.
I think it's just a little different, man. I mean, Gary, you can just put him out there for defense and he's not going to do too much on offense. He's just going to fit in. I just feel like Porter it's so different. That's just me.
I have an example, and it actually includes the Nuggets, was the 2017-18 year, Game 82. Jimmy Butler missed like 15, 20 games right before that.
Was that his first game back?
I think he maybe came back like game 80.
Okay.
But it was this. Basically, kind of the idea of right before, like what Murray would probably be the comp there. But he came back too early. Like in hindsight, there, like if they could have done that over, they would have had him take that extra week. But then maybe you don't win that game 82.
Right, that's true.
So those weren't preseason. Those weren't preseason games for the Wolves. That they were going for the 8th seed with Denver.
Do you find a nice parallel there, though? I mean, this game 82 was weird because Minnesota was a little bit ahead of Denver. It felt like in the development, just because they had gone for Jimmy Butler. But do you feel a little parallel there of like, hey, it all comes back down to this, and maybe there's an echo between these two teams of like, hey, remember 4 years ago? This is the same situation.
Well, there's oddly a lot of players who played in that game and will be playing in this game. Some now on the Timberwolves.
Right.
I guess Malik Beasley is out right now, so he won't be playing. But Vanderbilt was there. Cat.
Beasley always gives it to Denver too. Have you noticed? Like Beasley, I feel like his
Super Bowl.
That is his Super Bowl.
Any chance to outplay Gary or
funny.
Will Barton is like a very circle that twice.
Gary.
I think.
Yeah.
Gary,
He's been awesome
really?
For the Wolves the past few months. He
had that record-breaking three-pointer night.
Well, yeah. Ant made 10 against Denver, and Malik made 11 a couple weeks later.
That's crazy.
Who they're playing, but man, he's been like. If you go through like the past 3 months, like he is the highest volume 3-point shooter in the league outside of Steph Curry.
Wow.
And he like if you go per 36
sure.
or whatever.
He gets them up quick,
and he's made like 46% of them.
he can shoot the shit out of it.
I mean,
really can shoot.
It's like it's been the best version of Beasley these past few months, which in Wolves world is ironic because if they didn't make any moves at the deadline, but if something was going to happen, it was going to be trading out Malik Beasley to, I don't know, get some more size or something. But the best move the Wolves made at the deadline was not trading Malik Beasley.
For years, though, Harrison, the Nuggets didn't lose to the Timberwolves, and I felt like it was because of that game 82. Like it was almost like they circled that game. It was like 3 years they didn't lose to them, and I feel like it
the Wolves
really was.
also sucked in those.
They did, but I mean, Denver loses a lot of teams that suck. But I wonder if that has worn off, and I think if Jamal was here, maybe it wouldn't have because Jamal and Jokic lost that game.
Yeah.
Like now you talk about like some of these other guys. I don't even know if Barton was playing that time. Maybe he was. I don't remember.
Yeah, maybe.
Wilson
I don't know.
Chandler was playing for sure.
Wilson Chandler had a game to forget. I just think that was so long ago. Denver's not even thinking about that.
That's a bummer. I
bet Towns is though. I just think Denver's moved so far past that. They've had playoff runs and whatnot. I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota still thinks about that though. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, just goes back to like it's another thing that gets Cat up for games against Jokic.
Yeah.
That's one of the only other great players in the league that he's beaten in a really important game.
Right.
In his entire career. Yeah. I mean,
I feel like he's grown a lot. I mean, this has been like 2 years where we talked about Towns maybe not taking full ownership of the team and responsibility and this or that. And some of the things he says, every now and then I'll read a quote that I'll kind of be like, whatever, I'll kind of roll my eyes out. But I do feel like he's had a big maturation process in that regard over the last season and a half, 2 seasons.
Yeah, I would say so for sure. This is his favorite group of guys, teammates that have been around him. And then, I mean, I just go to the like early 20s human being, like all of us when we were 23, if people were transcribing everything we'd say, there'd be some,
right.
Like
that's true.
there's just different people turn on the like more mature adult switch at different times in their life, right? And I think for Cat, obviously the tragedy he went through that kind of that unfortunately matures you in other ways, and he's just a lot more comfortable in his skin. He's still very vain, and he's very aware of the way he's perceived, and a lot of those quotes that you're talking about that you see from Cat,
almost trying too hard.
What he is trying to do is play 3D chess. I am asking him the question, and he is not answering me. He is thinking about what can I say here that will sound right.
And when you see the gears turning.
And it just kind of becomes he goes in the wrong direction with it. Like there's been less of that this year, but that's also, that's just kind of who Karl is, and that's okay.
Is he like a lighthouse figure though? Like we know he's the best player, but do guys look to him when he's on or off the court?
I almost mean more of that than I do the quotes. I almost just mean more of the like, is he
his team
taking the ownership that includes the responsibility aspects of this team?
I think it's Pat Bev's team.
Wow. Well, maybe that helps. Like sometimes it helps to have a guy
it's Karl's team in a basketball sense. Of course. Which matters a lot. So I shouldn't give it up because Pat Bev scores like 9 points a game. So you don't get to be that. But I say that to mean that it's kind of like this tandem of Karl and Pat who are
a real yin and yang type relationship.
Totally. But it's worked. Like a lot of people in Minnesota were like, oh no, look how Jimmy Butler went. What do you think it's going to be like with Pat Bev?
Sure.
And it's been the complete opposite. Like those guys are cool with each other. Pat knows. I mean, Pat's trying to win. You know, he knows he needs a player of that caliber.
Oh, he's gonna goon it up tomorrow. It's gonna be. We're all gonna hate him. We're gonna hate him so bad. Let's take a break on on the other side though. Let's talk about broader Western Conference playoffs. Who Dane's looking for the Timberwolves to play. That we're looking for. We'll get there. Maybe even a playoff matchup. Who knows? Those teams could match up.
Breckenridge Brewery is the official beer of DNVR. If you're in the area, stop by the DNVR Bar, corner of Colfax in New York. We got Breck Brew seltzers chilling in the fridge right now. Bunch of different flavors. So if you're in the area, stop in. Make sure to pick one of those up. If you're not, it's all right. Go to the Breck Brew website. Check out the Breck Brew beer locator. It will tell you where to get seltzers closest to wherever you are. So pick up some Breckenridge Brewery seltzers. Breck Brew is the official beer of DNVR.
That's it? That was quick, Harrison. All right, final segment over here. Let's talk broader NBA playoffs. They begin in like a week and a half. When's the play-in? Do we know?
12th and 13th.
So what is that? 2 weeks. So it's basically 2 weeks away. I'm going to my monthly one here. Monthly
like
calendar.
Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that.
The 12th and 13th?
Is that correct? No?
Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. I'm on the wrong month here. Yes, you're correct.
Calendar corner here in segment 3.
Well, I've never actually used the month part of the calendar here. It's very, very weird.
It's a helpful one.
Yeah, it's very helpful. Yeah, you're right. So we got a week and a half here, which is gonna fly by. Who are the Timberwolves most likely to beat in the first round of the playoffs?
I think Memphis.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Why? Why Memphis?
I think that's a team who doesn't really have a matchup for Cat. And I know, like, you got to look at it through the lens of, the team that you're playing against and the team that you have, and that they match up. I mean, they beat Memphis by 46 once this year. And then I think they're 2-2 against Memphis.
God, I would love that series though. That would be a really fun one. In part because they're both young. You know, they kind of both have a reason to have a sort of chip on their shoulder. They don't
not like each other.
Why?
There was remember when Memphis went on the 11th game winning streak? The 11th game was in Memphis against the Wolves, and like the Grizzlies were on the court like taking pictures after the game, which apparently all the Wolves took offense to.
I love it.
When they like
they were a little too happy.
I'm sure Pat Beverly took the most offense to that.
It was
out of anyone.
He said so on Twitter.
He did.
So there was actually.
I'm rooting for this. Like,
and Ja both said it was a rivalry in their post game.
Really?
Yeah. All right, Nuggets need to win tomorrow. Then just take some pictures. There we go.
Just really send them into a spiral.
Yeah.
So I'm gleaning that you guys think Memphis is a terrible matchup for Denver.
I just think they're a really good team. It's not even a match. I don't even get to the matchup. I just look at that and I go, that's a team that's peaking right now, and they're really talented. And you look at Golden State and Utah, and it's like those teams are in shambles. Mm-hmm. So I'd personally rather play them right now.
It's also when you're worried about perimeter containment, and then you turn your head and see Ja Morant. You're like, oh yeah, that's tough. That's
Denver
tough.
Can't guard
but that's kind of my point, though, right? Like Denver and Minnesota are put together very differently. Like Minnesota does actually have perimeter defenders who they can put on Ja there. I also think part of it for me is the Wolves are at a very different place in their like trajectory than the Nuggets are. They're years behind them. And I think there's a lot of value for Anthony Edwards and for Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell, who've played in very few playoff games in their careers, to have like a real series that is competitive and not maybe disagree that, against Memphis, it could be competitive, but I don't think the Wolves will at all be competitive against Phoenix.
Yeah.
And then, like, Golden State, you're right, shambles and everything. But if everyone's back, like, I think that's just an older group that will be able to handle the Wolves pretty easily. Memphis is young, too.
Yeah.
Like, they're not playoff battle tested.
They're kind of awesome, though. Like, to me, I almost give them an extra year of maturity just because they're really good players. Like, they have a lot of guys that know what to do.
They really do. But then again, I was watching Golden State Phoenix last night, and I haven't watched the Warriors in a while, probably since they played the Nuggets. And just watching Draymond Green on defense last night, what he did to DeAndre Ayton, I was like, oh my God. Now I don't want any part of the Warriors again.
No, you don't.
I was like, okay, they're in shambles, no Steph, but Draymond last night, I was like, holy shit, man. This guy's still the best defender in the league. Part of
me wants to see Jokic go at Draymond. I just want to see what happens.
We haven't seen it,
We haven't seen a whole lot of it in a series that.
You can't want it in the first round, though.
I think you want the Warriors, if you get them, you want them in the first round. Part of me wants them
because of the injuries.
But I also want them in the Phoenix side of the bracket because I do think they have the best chance of getting them. And Golden State in the second round should be a lot scarier. So if you kind of say, like, Phoenix, Golden State, second round, maybe they take them out. And again, Denver.
This is second round, that's not even in my I
know, part of
get to the
we've been talking about, like, avoiding Phoenix, and it was like, should we just focus on the first round here?
Yes.
Yes, probably. But my whole thing is, like, I don't want Jokic to ever lose a first round series. I just think it'd be cool to always say that's a guaranteed ticket. So might as well get a good one there. Here's my big fear. I think the Clippers are awesome, and they just lost 5 games in a row. So there's a little bit of this, like, how am I saying they're awesome? I think they're a sleeping giant. They threw the game against Denver. I really believe this. They threw it because they knew they were in the play-in, and they knew that Denver at that time was looking likely to be in the play-in. Now it's kind of changed, but I think that was a don't tip your hand, but we know not how to beat them, but we know what they don't want us to do. And they didn't do it.
We know our game plan against them.
And they didn't do it. They're like, we're not going to do it this time to give them a little extra practice. I think the Clippers are good. They got Paul George back. He had an awesome game. You saw Norman Powell was working out and says he's pain-free. Like, he might be back. I just look at that Clippers team in the first round of the play-in, and I go, would I be surprised, whether it was Minnesota or whether it was Denver, would I be surprised if not only did the Clippers win that game, but won it a little comfortably? I'm not saying it would happen. It just would not surprise me one bit. And that's why I don't know how you feel. I'm terrified of the play-in because the bad teams down there at the bottom can become good in an instant.
Also, that team in Southern California is getting healthier too.
Well, we'll talk about them next, but I want to talk about the Clippers. Like, do they scare you at all? If you are in the 7th seed and you play the Clippers, what's your confidence level there?
Very scared. I mean, it's because, again, I think it's important for the Wolves to have a playoff series. Like I was just saying, and so and for Denver too. Like, at least Denver can fall back on the excuse of, like, oh, we didn't have Murray and Porter, whatever. Right. The Wolves, like, this year, they've very much exceeded expectations, and that's, like, the narrative around them right now.
But it's still unsatisfying.
If we're talking in 2 weeks and they didn't actually make the playoffs, I don't know. I think people are going to remember that more than your, like, 47 win total. So, I think, though, like, and this applies to the Nuggets as well, we got to do, like, some basic math. And in the idea statistically of losing 2 games in a row at home, like, even call it 50-50 in that first matchup, right? If it's 50-50 in that first matchup and you still lose it, and then it's 50-50 in the next matchup, that's still a 75% chance that you're going to move on. And the odds are probably higher than that. The odds are probably higher than that, too.
Are they?
This is Sachin Gupta just getting into Dane's brain with all these spreadsheets and calculations and whatnot.
Look at the algorithm here says the tree here, yeah.
By the way, you could have said any numbers and I would have nodded my head and agreed.
He's doing the math together.
Though, it is 2 games, though. Like,
you're right. It
is 2 games.
At home.
I think a bad part of the play-in, an underrated bad part of the play-in for the Wolves or for the Nuggets is the possibility of, even if you do get that second play-in game, then you're the 8th seed and you play Phoenix and it's over.
Right, that's a great point.
So, like, I mean,
that would be
sucks.
You're right that the playoffs do matter for a team like Minnesota, but if you get Phoenix and you just get swept, it feels only like
that's what I'm saying.
A half step better than.
I don't think Memphis will do that. I don't think Memphis will do that to anyone, honestly.
What's that?
Like, just sweep them. I think whoever Memphis plays in the first round.
Oh, I see.
Memphis
won't do
at least.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, that's probably right.
And I see a lot of value in that for the Timberwolves.
I
Like
agree.
every game, extra matters.
The other part of this, I mean, I know what you're saying about the Clippers. I just think the Clippers are really good, and we just haven't seen it. It's been so hidden because they haven't had this team on the court together at any portion. But like, they might actually get it together for the first time this week and put it all together, and we'll get 3-game sample size and be like, oh shit,
Be the
that
most
team's really good.
2022 NBA thing ever.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
I mean, it's so dumb.
well, honestly, I look at this and I go, Brooklyn's in the play-in. The
Yeah,
Clippers are in the
dumb over
play-in.
there, too.
The LeBron, and he's got this rolled ankle. Anthony Davis allegedly is going to test that out tomorrow and try to come back and then be just in time to play 2 straight games in a row against the Nuggets, which is a huge bummer. So they might actually be the best version of themselves that they've been all year.
But
and again, I'm with
they
you.
suck.
Yeah, that part's important to remember.
That part is important. It is important, but look, LeBron and Anthony Davis fully motivated and focused for one game.
Sure,
and that's the thing
sure.
is it's not about a series. It's not about this. It's just like, can they do something in one game? And
Anthony Davis is an upgrade over Wenyen Gabriel.
for sure.
Remember how everyone used to say, if you're a contender, you have your final team at the trade deadline, not the start of the regular season.
Right.
Now it's, if you're a contender, you just have your final team with like 2 games left before the playoffs.
You're in the
start.
play-in, probably.
So make sure they show up in March.
We're literally talking about the Nuggets maybe getting their key pieces back on next Wednesday.
That's just the sexy thing to do, man. Just get your team right with a couple games left.
the season is so
Fashionably
dumb.
late.
It would honestly, I would feel bad for Minnesota if they don't make the playoffs this year, because you're right. That would be the most. Minnesota also is facing the Denver has similar things. This feeling of being cursed, right? Like all these things have gone bad for them. And if you have the season that you have and just miss it by a hair, and then somehow Paul George goes for 50 and then Anthony Davis goes for 50, and you're just like, what the hell just happened?
Right.
These teams didn't do anything to build on this. but they
82
just-
games and it's over like that.
and it's just like that. So it's
It could get real bad for the Wolves if they lose those 2. I'm sure I'm playing this on my podcast too, and my listeners will hate to hear this, but like, if the Wolves don't make the playoffs, they lose in the play-in. That's very demoralizing.
yeah.
And maybe that impacts Karl Anthony Towns' All-NBA case. And he is only Supermax eligible to sign an extension this summer
Oh wow!
if he gets All-NBA. No All-NBA.
Real chain reaction there.
Aren't
for
the
the
votes
future.
in before
Yeah.
the play-in, though?
Either way, the product of I'm more so talking about the product of okay, the season wasn't actually as good as we thought it was because they didn't make the playoffs. Plus, Cat gets screwed somehow by this dumb voting system of like Embiid and Jokic or centers, maybe. Like, it's all so stupid. And if that ends up not happening and Gobert makes third-team All-NBA over Cat, a possibility. I don't think that's the right thing, but if you look at how things were voted on in the All-Star game by the media, like, Gobert was clearly above Cat. So, like, I just think there's a lot on the line for the Wolves in these final 5
here's the
games.
better question. If they do drop the play-in and don't make the first round, does that lead to significant changes, I'll say?
No, it puts you in limbo for a year, which you don't want.
It's uncomfortable.
Like, I mean, I think the Wolves will continue to progress, but they're young and
They got their squad, no
But,
matter
like,
what happens.
Look at New York this year.
Yeah,
that's kind
it's
of a
such a
team
good
who's
one.
like
You're
similar,
right.
or Atlanta.
Great.
Where what if the Wolves regress like those teams
Yep.
do next year? And now, if Cat didn't sign the Supermax, now you missed the play-in weird stuff this year, and you somehow got some guys hurt, and you go 40 and 42 next year, and now Karl, do you want to sign it?
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe
Like,
you don't. Maybe
that-
you're less. Yeah.
He will for sure sign it this summer if he is Supermax.
Well, of course, that's so much money.
Yeah. But that's a huge deal for.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have this it's this foregone conclusion that Jokic is going to be a Nugget till he.
It's really nice,
randomly,
man. Let me tell
retires.
you, it's really nice.
It's a luxury.
Yeah. And I mean, Cat's been here forever. And to be fair to Cat, he has always said publicly, that he wants to build
Sure.
something in Minnesota and do those things. And I believe that. But at some point, as a professional,
Right.
at 28 years, it's the same thing with KD leaving at 28 years old. A lot of times, guys just go. That's when they move. If it's not the perfect Jokic setup,
Ready for something new.
Yeah, So I don't think that's where it's moving, but those are the stakes, I guess, for the Wolves.
I think I have it. I think our
Uh-oh.
perfect bracket now features Denver in the first round as the 6th seed taking on. At this point, I think it's just Dallas. I don't know that Dallas is the perfect matchup for Denver, but it's not the worst matchup, and it looks the most likely that they will be the 3. That's a tough one. I don't love it, but we'll see what happens.
Fun series.
But the 7 seed being Minnesota against Memphis is a great, because it sounds like there's at least a chance, if nothing else, to make that competitive, make it go the distance, and maybe, who knows, Minnesota wins that one. And then you've got, I'm telling you, this Clippers team is an 8 seed going up against Phoenix. Do I think they're going to beat the Suns? Hell no, I don't think they will. But you know what? That's not. I don't think it's a sweep.
Maybe they beat the Wolves in the play-in, and then they're the 7.
Maybe they could take the Suns to 5 games.
I think no.
What about Clippers Grizzlies?
No,
though?
here's the thing. Here's the thing, though, guys.
Clippers Grizzlies.
Part of what I want here. No, I want Minnesota to beat the Grizzlies. I like that series. I'm saying 8 here. I like Clippers there. Ty Lue's a great coach, and sometimes what happens in the playoffs is you just see what did the other coaches do. What was the thing Ty Lue unlocked about the Suns that they hate, and now the next team builds on that and goes for it. And so if you force Phoenix to go round 1 against the Clippers, round 2 against the Warriors before getting to the conference finals, to me, I'm just like, that's a really, they might have the hardest path of anybody. They'll be the 1 seed and have the hardest road to the finals.
Yeah.
And that would just be a really lucky break for Denver. Again, I'm not counting on Denver to make it to the finals or this or that, but hey, if you're going to stack the deck,
you're here.
Might as well stack it the best way you possibly can, and that might be it. So I like it. Final prediction for tomorrow.
For tomorrow?
Give me like a score. Give me a score and maybe a top storyline.
115, 110 Nuggets. Jokic wins MVP.
Yeah, just on the court. Adam Silver
bring out the trophy.
I feel like
the Clorox MVP. No, the Kia MVP. Bring it out.
Kia MVP.
Get the spokesman there. Like,
is it not the Clorox MVP?
No, Clorox was All-Star game.
Okay.
It's always been the Kia MVP.
It's always been, of course. Bill Russell won the Kia MVP back in the day.
Ever since Blake Griffin jumped over the car, it's been the Kia. But no, I think if Jokic has a dominant game tomorrow night, he wins MVP. Nuggets are locked into at least the 6th seed. And I think it's a close game, and Denver gets it tomorrow.
Vote.
Oh, man. I know it's a close game.
I hope so.
I kind of think the Wolves take this one. I think they're in more of a place of desperation. I think the Nuggets are doing what they need to do to pick up wins right now. But has it necessarily been inspiring ball over these last 3?
God, it's anything but, for sure.
Versus like hanging on by a thread. I could just, and Denver also hasn't been great at home. So I could just see the Wolves coming out like a team that wants it more. And that being a gap that's tough to bridge across 4 quarters.
Yeah.
It's crazy for the Wolves to be that team, but they aren't. I mean, they've never been that team.
Sure.
Since I've covered them. And yeah, like they do have that ability. Again, I talk about the first quarter. Like they want to come out of the first quarter, turn it over 7 times,
right?
You know, and if they're able to do that, they're going to win. I think they'll win the game. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I view the game pretty close as like a coin flip. I think it'll be high scoring.
You do?
I do
too.
See, that's the part I wonder about. The regular season games just don't have an intensity to them. They just don't. And like you can have a great game like a month ago where 2 teams are just kind of in a zone and there's this thing to it. But tomorrow night is a game that going into it, both teams know how important it is. And I kind of feel like
that maybe drives it down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, 110, 108, 110, 107, something like that I could see, which is for these 2 teams low scoring because guys just miss. It's an uglier game than we think.
I'll stick with my high score. I'll say Wolves 125, Nuggets 119.
I think that's a pretty. I kind of lean that way too, and I hate to say it, but just Denver has not played very inspiring basketball a whole lot.
I watched that Pacers game on the plane today.
Wow! Salute to you.
Yeah, salute. Wow.
What else can I do? That was really uninspiring.
What was your takeaway?
What about the first quarter though?
Well,
that was
even the first
then.
quarter was. So I was kind of tracking the game last night as the Wolves were playing. You know, just like looking at the score, and I'm like, oh my god. 43-15 after the first quarter. But then I was watching the game and it was like 14-10. Like it was kind of close, and then they just dominated like the end of that quarter. But yeah, I just found like I don't know, when it feels like Goga Batadze and Jalen Smith are like outworking you. Like that's
the thing is they got outworked. Yeah. That's the part that's so annoying.
It was really Terry Taylor grabbing 9 offensive rebounds.
And that's my concern, by the way, for this game. Like if Denver plays their A game at home, can they beat
is
the
Jeff
Wolves?
Green?
Of course.
Is Jeff Green going to match bring the requisite?
Are they going to show up to work?
Not,
I don't know, man.
I mean, we'll find
you guys were so much higher on the Nuggets 2 months ago when I was here.
This
you were.
The getting
you came out at the
worked.
beginning and you were like, Jokic has reached.
You're right.
But level.
Here's the problem: is Jokic has been at that level, and it's still a grind. You're still just like, damn it, he shoot. What is he did in March? He shot like 70% from the field, and they eke out wins against Indiana.
Everyone
so
else has fallen down a level.
It's just like it doesn't make sense.
I feel like from removed, like I've been kind of enjoyed the Nuggets these past.
Sure.
Once they've like the boogie thing felt like a big change.
That was definitely a shot in the arm.
That was a shot in the arm for sure.
Not only to do something in those backup 5 minutes, but the rotation just seems to make a little bit more sense where there's not like some of those times where like, wait, those 3 guys are out there.
I think the last time the Wolves played Denver, the Nuggets bench was still like a disaster.
Yeah,
that might be the biggest change in like Denver's makeup because
That's
now
a good point.
the
Who was
bench
even the backup 5 then?
There literally wasn't.
You know what? I'm
Green.
gonna take Denver here. I'm just looking at it.
I'll
tell you 115 to 111. I'll say
bench
Denver.
factor's a big
Here's
point.
the thing
point.
that I think is hard when you're watching these games versus when you step back and you see the forest for the trees here. What they lost to Boston and they got they lost to the Thunder. And that was a bummer of a game. But that's kind of a tough matchup for Denver. And it was the first loss they had in 8 games. And they lost it. And we're like, God, they suck.
Lindy
But it was
Waters just a
they
killer.
lost to one.
How do you match up with that?
Then they lost.
Sam Presti
Then they lost on a back-to-back against Golden State. And they lost to Toronto. Turns out Toronto just beat, like we've mentioned, they're beating all these teams. So those are 2 games that you look at and you're like, not bad losses. They just were losses. And they were surrounded by a 4-game winning streak and a 2-game winning streak. They blew a lead at Cleveland, and that felt bad. But guess what? Cleveland's a good team, and they lost in overtime to them on the end of a road trip. And then they lost to Boston, which everybody loses to. And then they lost to Phoenix. That's it. In the last 2 months, those are all of Denver's losses. 2 months.
Right.
And all of those losses you look at and you go, okay, see, that was a bad one. Every other one was one that they probably were underdogs in or close, and they lost them in ways you'd expect.
And the wins have been ugly.
The wins have just been unsatisfying.
But that's the thing with this team and Jokic. The wins are ugly, but in the end, Nikola Jokic just always finds a way.
It's like his style of play lends itself to ugly wins. Like it lends itself to fewer blowouts, so you sometimes feel bad about only winning by 7 against the Pacers, but it's still a win.
He always finds a way.
Isn't it so fun when Jokic just decides to take over?
It's the best.
And like scoring wise, take over.
The best thing in my life, Dan.
The Jokic. There's been so many of them this year. The Jokic takeover games really are the best thing in life, and you're just like, wow.
Comparatively
there is
against
a god.
Town, like it's maddening to me to watch Towns get taken away by double teams often.
Yeah.
And then Jokic is just like, please double me.
Oh, we're so spoiled.
It is.
It's stupid.
There's so many wins. Like when you just look at the Nuggets' like the schedule, you just see WWWWWL, WWWWLL.
I will say,
they're just like, why do we feel bad about
the Wolves?
this team?
The Wolves looks the same.
Yeah,
the Wolves looks
that's the thing.
For sure.
But again, though, I actually think we've kind of put our fingers on it. Like it's the getting outworked aspects that have really drained us as a fan base.
For sure.
Especially when you sort of feel like this is a team that one lesson they should have learned by now is that's the last thing that can happen to them with the guys they don't have.
Yeah.
They have to be the underdog.
I think the Wolves will outwork them tomorrow.
That's my concern.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Should be a great game of the year for both of these teams, and one that carries enough stakes. I love it too. You talk about 1 week before the playoffs begin. You kind of want a playoff intensity game. Here it is on a silver platter, and I sincerely hope, it's the last big game of the regular season for the Nuggets, that they just take care of business and say, 4 games, DNVR crew, relax, drink some rakia on the set, have a good time.
We're going to win 50 games, and we cried the whole time.
We're going to cry the entire way. It's gonna be
No,
hilarious.
you were very happy the last
That's right. That's right. It's
one
been a
day
long
you were
time.
happy. I know that. I know that.
It's been a long year.
All right, everybody, hit that like button on the way out. Don't forget, check out. Up there, we're going kind of
we're
quick
outta here.
here. Hit the like button on the way out. Don't forget, yesterday did the Keep It at 1000 podcast with George Carl. It was a very good conversation. I always love doing those ones with him. He gives great insight, not just on the Nuggets, but on basketball at large. I really sincerely hope everybody goes and checks that one out. Check out the Dane Moore Show. You want anything you want to plug?
No, if you're a Nuggets fan looking for a Timberwolves podcast, you can.
But you do great work talking about the game. I mean, there's people. I mean, you cover it a lot like we do, and that you clearly have want the Timberwolves to do well, but you keep enough distance from it, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think I try and take the Harrison
Yeah.
path with that, and
Terrible take.
That's not what you want to do.
We actually don't think he does a very good job around here. But
wind chimes, baby.
Wow, they've made it all the way to Minnesota.
They
Wow.
really
I'm a
chime in.
subscriber.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Have a good one.